Please subscribe to hear more Cryptid Tales. If you like the story you heard, give us a thumbs up and feel free to leave us a comment. If you'd like to hear your own cryptid encounter on Cryptid Tales, send us an email at cryptidtalesmail@gmail.com. I want to share a story with you about what happened to me one summer after visiting my parents. I had gone out to visit them during summer break and was headed back home. It was about a 16-hour drive or so, but I didn't mind. I liked being on the road and found it sort of relaxing. Just the road and my thoughts to keep me company, and an old tape deck in the dash. I was on I-40, somewhere between Memphis and Little Rock. The skies had been getting dark, and I had seen some pretty scary-looking lightning off in the distance. Before I knew it, the sun had set and the storm had moved in over the interstate. It came down like cats and dogs, pouring down like someone had just tipped over a bucket. I had my windshield wipers on high, but they weren't making it any easier to see. All I saw in front of me was my headlights reflecting off a curtain of rain. That's when the wind started rocking my car back and forth, and I knew it was time to find a place to pull off the road for a while. During the chaos of Mother Nature's fury, I swore I saw a sign that had said rest stop ahead, so I pulled over on the shoulder with my hazards on and kept my eyes peeled for the exit. After a couple miles of hoping for the best, I was barely able to make out the exit sign for the rest stop and pulled in. I followed the road on back to the parking area that was separated from the interstate by a pretty thick area of trees. The parking lot sat between that and woods on the other side and offered a little bit of shelter from the storm, but not much. I pulled into the last spot on the end that seemed the most sheltered by the trees and shut off my engine. I sat there in the dark, listening to the pounding of the rain on the roof of my car. I had been on the road for a while, so I decided it was as good a time as any to settle in and get comfortable. The storm didn't seem like it was going to let up anytime soon anyways. I dug some potato chips and a can of Vienna sausages out of a plastic grocery bag I kept stocked with snacks for the road. Between that and half a bottle of Mountain Dew that had gone flat, I was good to go for the night. About the time I finished my chips, I saw the glow of a set of headlights pulling into the parking area. The rain had let up a little, but was still pouring down to the point I couldn't even tell you what kind of vehicle it was. They parked at the opposite end from me. I could see another light pop on, their dome light, I assume. I thought to myself that they must really have to go to the bathroom to get out in this monsoon. A minute or so later, and their dome light popped back on, and then immediately off. I watched as their car jerked out of the parking spot and took off. I could hear their tires spinning on the wet pavement as they fishtailed out of the parking lot and back out onto the interstate. Their taillights shrunk and vanished between the trees as they sped away. At the time, I thought that they were just in a hurry, had to be somewhere. Looking back, a lonely rest stop in the middle of the night, during a raging thunderstorm, most people would have probably been freaked out by that. But for some reason, danger never crossed my mind. That's when things like this happen, when you don't expect them to, or don't realize what's actually going on around you. With a belly full of junk food and the sound of the rain, I laid my seat back and closed my eyes. I'm sure it was only mere minutes before I was out for the count. I woke up to the movement of my car. At first, I wasn't sure what was going on. Did another car bump into mine? Then it did it again. I felt the back end drop down and then spring back up with the sound of the shocks squeaking. I looked around and saw that it was still dark and that my windows were all fogged up. The rain had stopped, but more importantly, what had hit my car or bumped it? I didn't know what was going on. I pulled up my sleeve to wipe the fog off my window when something, a shadow, walked right by my driver's side door. I could see the blurry form of something through the fog, but couldn't make out what it was. A person, I guessed. A highway patrolman, maybe? I sat there for a minute or two and then started my car. I hit the wipers, which didn't do much good as the fog was mostly on the inside. So I took my hand and swiped away a spot as large as I could and turned on my headlights. Nothing. Just the woods and a trash can. I grabbed some napkins I had in the glove box and wiped the fog off the windshield some more. I thought maybe I had imagined things. Maybe a shadow didn't walk by my car. One thing was for sure, the junk food dinner was making my stomach churn, and I was going to have to get out of the car pretty soon. Down at the other end of the parking lot, I could see a bathroom. I don't know how familiar you are with rest stops, but some of them can be pretty nice, with vending machines and nice big bright bathrooms. Well, this wasn't one of those. This bathroom was a metal canister where the outer wall wrapped around itself to create an entryway where you couldn't be seen from the outside. Pretty much a metal outhouse with no door. I gathered up my trash and got out of the car. I stood there for a second, getting my bearings. It was quiet and dark. There weren't any other cars. I didn't even hear any interstate traffic. I tossed the empty potato chip bag and Vienna sausage can into the trash and made my way towards the bathroom. As I approached the dark opening to the bathroom canister, I remembered that vehicle that had taken off like a bat out of hell earlier. Maybe the bathroom had scared them off and they sped off to find the next closest one. It wasn't exactly welcoming as I walked through the open gap in the metal wall. No sooner had I taken a seat when I heard the distinct rattle of the trash can over by my car. I pictured a hungry raccoon watching me from the trees as I threw away my trash. He didn't waste any time at all going to check out what I'd thrown in there. After a short time, the sound of trash rummaging had stopped. I looked at the gap around the bottom of the metal wall and prayed the raccoon didn't pop up under it and join me. Then I heard something. The sound of heavy footfalls, running from the direction of the trash can towards my direction. Not towards the bathroom, but back towards the tree line. They grew louder and heavier sounding as they drew closer and then past the bathroom. Was someone out there? I fastened my pants and stood there in the dark, straining to listen. Whatever it was had suddenly stopped running. I had absolutely nothing on me. No kind of weapon, not even a flashlight. I didn't know what else to do but listen. And what I was hearing was the footsteps coming towards the backside of the outhouse. My knees felt like jello as the steps walked right up to the canister. Whatever it was started making a sound like it was sniffing the air. The sound came from up high, higher than my own head. That's when I first thought it was a bear. The idea of a raccoon crawling underneath the gap at the bottom suddenly transformed into a bear's head poking around, coming in through the opening to the inside. Maybe it was that image that made me look down towards the gap at the bottom. Just as I did, I saw part of what I can only describe as a large foot and some toes pull back away, like it stepped back right as I looked down. Those toenails were long and thick looking, but not like claws, not like a bear would have. And this was a foot, not a paw. But it had long stringy hair growing on top. I had never seen anything like it. Right at that same moment, the thing smacked the back of the outhouse wall, shaking the entire canister. It sounded like being inside a huge drum, and I'm not going to lie, I screamed. I couldn't help it. It just came out. I threw my hand over my mouth and clenched my jaw shut to prevent another sound from coming out. I was more afraid than I had ever been in my life, and more than I ever have since. I was too afraid to run, too afraid to even move. That metal outhouse felt like my only protection at the moment. I could hear the thing out there breathing. It almost sounded congested and would make a sound like it was clearing its throat every few breaths. It walked around the outhouse slowly, I couldn't see its feet, but I could see its shadow on the ground from the moon that had peeked out from behind the clouds. It slowly dragged its hand across the corrugated metal wall. Every muscle in my body tensed up as I expected any moment for this thing to come tearing in there with me, and I had nowhere to run. Suddenly, in an instant, the thing took off running, away from the outhouse and towards the woods. Within a matter of seconds, I could hear limbs breaking and snapping as it tore off through the trees. That's when I noticed the sound of an approaching car, and the bright glow of the headlights lit up the openings to the bathroom. I made my way out of the bathroom into the glow of the approaching headlights. The high beams blinded me for a second, but I guess the driver saw me and switched them to low. I turned and looked towards the woods, halfway expecting to see some sort of creature or monster standing at the tree line, but all I saw were trees. I wasted no time getting back to my car. As I walked past the trash can, I saw my potato chip bag and the Vienna sausage can laying on the ground next to it. I got in my car, and like the vehicle I had watched earlier during the storm, I wasted no time getting out of there. I was probably a good 5 to 10 miles away when I noticed in my rearview mirror what looked like a huge handprint smudge on the back windshield of my car. You could clearly make out a palm at least twice the size of my own, and what looked like huge fingers, maybe 6 inches long or more. I never actually saw what was out there that night at the rest stop, but I know what I heard and experienced. I know what that foot looked like, and I know for sure it wasn't a bear. Whatever it was, to make me that afraid, I just don't know. It shook me up bad enough that I never stopped at a rest stop again. Not even during the daytime. Not even one of those real nice ones with the vending machines and the nice big bright bathrooms.